The Los Angeles Chargers are looking back on an 11-win 2024, but can they build off that and find more postseason success in 2025? That is the question for the LA Chargers going into this season. Welcome back, everybody, to 32 on 32 here on Chase's Sports News, where we preview every NFL team season with a team reporter. Today, we preview the Los Angeles Chargers' upcoming season with a very special guest, a reporter on the beat covering the Chargers for the Sporting Tribune, Fernando Ramirez. Fernando, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, no, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad we're able to connect here. I think the Los Angeles Chargers are one of the more interesting teams in the NFL. I think the roster is well constructed. I think they have an opportunity to do some great things this coming year. We're going to break down some of the things that stood out from preseason. We'll talk about the construction of the team, the schedule, all that stuff. But let's start off. What really did stand out to you from the Chargers training camp as well as their preseason action that just wrapped up?
I mean, obviously, what stands out is the injury to Rashawn Slater. I mean, that really hurt the team. Now the only thing is that good thing you drafted a former fifth overall pick in Joe Alt that you can move from right tackle to left tackle.
Right.
I think Joe Alt has the potential of being an All-Pro at left tackle for the Chargers. I mean, last year they put him in there against the Raiders late in the season, last game of the season, because Rashawn Slater got injured right before the game, and they put Joe in there, and Joe just looked like he was very comfortable at that position. He played it at Notre Dame. A lot of good things coming out of Joe at Notre Dame that you heard about, and they say that's his natural position. So I wouldn't be surprised if Joe turns in an All-Pro year. Now the only thing is that everybody was very excited about that right side because it was going to be Joe Alt at right tackle,
Right.
and it was going to be Mekhi Becton at right guard. But now you don't have that. So Trey Pipkin slides in there. They tried the experiment of moving him over to guard. It didn't work. I thought it was a very sloppy interior offensive line last year. You bring in Mekhi Becton, who, I mean, we all know his injury history. I know last year he put it together for the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Chargers are hoping that he does the same exact thing here. Trey Pipkin's a decent right tackle. They should be fine in that area. I think the really big question marks are center and left guard with Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman. But yeah, the reason why I'm nitpicking the offensive line is because that's kind of the weakness of the team so far, is that they have not been able to block properly for Justin Herbert, and now you have two bell cows in the back that are definitely going to need some holes to open up, and they're going to be running the football consistently. So you're going to need holes open for Najee Harris and for Omarion Hampton, and the offensive line is still a concern. And now without Rashawn Slater, it's an even bigger concern because before it seemed like Justin Herbert had the best tackles in the NFL. The Chargers had the best dynamic duo, but now obviously it's Joe Alt kind of on an island. And the rest of the guys kind of there's a lot of question marks on that offensive line.
Yeah, and it's kind of that element of homegrown as well. You draft Slater, you draft Alt. They both become these great tackles. And yeah, I mean, look, Pipkins is not a bad option. I think he's been somewhat productive as a pro so far. Obviously, nothing too special, but obviously having Alt and Slater opposite each other on the offensive line would have been absolutely incredible for the Los Angeles Chargers. Instead, they have to pivot. I do like Mekhi Becton there at guard, but you're right, just a few holes that they're going to have to figure out, and there's nothing more important for a quarterback than having good pass protection. You can ask Joe Burrow and some of the quarterbacks who have not had a great offensive line in their career. It's so important, so vital. I mean, even look at a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. His two best seasons have come when his left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, has been healthy and on the field. So you got to hope that All can take that step, be that All-Pro level player as you were talking about, and they still should be fine enough on the offensive line for Herbert to do his thing. I also wanted to talk about another thing that stood out from the preseason, and that was Trey Lance. And obviously he won that QB2 job. And look, he was kind of given up on before he ever had a chance to prove his worth. Obviously, the Chargers don't want to see Trey Lance in the game. They want Justin Herbert to be on the field leading victories. But if Herbert were to go down, should fans feel hopeful about that Trey Lance can maybe turn things around in his NFL career?
No.
No?
I mean, if Justin Herbert goes down, the ship goes down with him. I mean, that's how important Justin Herbert is. Now, when we talk about, I think there's only an island of 7 or 8 quarterbacks that you can really look at, or 9, and you can be like, yeah, if they are injured, this falls apart. And I think with Justin Herbert, it all falls apart. Now, the thing about Trey Lance, and I get it, a lot of fans were really excited about him last year against the against the Chargers. He threw 5 picks. This year, he looked more comfortable. I think it's the fact that we live in a world now in sports where you want everything now. You're not waiting. And the
Right.
thing is, it's the same thing that's happening with Anthony Richardson happened with Trey Lance.
Yep.
There were one hit wonders in college, and people thought, "Oh shoot, okay, I'm gonna go get him. Look at how good he looked."
And it was really just they were drafted on the
Yeah.
raw talent. They weren't drafted on the consistent production.
And they don't know how to. Some of these guys don't know how to run the system. They don't know how to. They don't know what they're seeing. You heard what Caleb Williams is gonna say, and Seth I can't remember his name, in his book, that he didn't know how to watch film, and he was with Lincoln Riley. So some of these guys are coming into the NFL and they don't know what they're looking at. They don't see what's happening. Jared Goff got fooled in the Super Bowl against the Patriots because he didn't know how to properly read a defense. And that's not completely on them. It's on the coaches in college that, again, they're the same way as the NFL. They want guys ready to go. They want them to play. And it doesn't matter. And we all saw the video of John Gruden with Jackson Dart. He's like, "Give me your snap count," and he goes, and he's like, "What the hell is that?" He's like, "That's my snap count." He's like, "No, dude, you need a snap count." So going back to Trey Lance, I thought he had a good preseason, but Taylor Heineke really didn't put up much of a fight. If we're being honest, he just did not look comfortable at all. Again, I think Trey's athleticism could help him, and I think he has learned a lot. Even DJ, the 4th string quarterback, I'm not even going to attempt to say his last name because I always mess it up. But even he looked decent at times during practice. He looked decent in preseason games. That's why they kept him over Taylor Heineke on the practice squad. So again, do I think Trey can progress? I do. There are some quarterbacks that just need quarterback rehab, as I call them. There are places where I feel like quarterbacks can go to rehab themselves, rehab their image, and they'll play better because they'll learn. And I think Jim is trying to do that with Trey Lance. But again, I think if Herbert goes down, you kind of they can kind of kiss the season goodbye right there, just because. And nothing against Trey Lance, just that's how important Justin Herbert is to this whole machine.
And that's fine to say. I think the conversation again, obviously, it's a pointless conversation if Herbert's able to stay healthy. His availability has been all right, and so far in the NFL. So I don't think it's something that Chargers fans should really worry about. I guess my problem with Trey Lance is that. And not a problem. I guess a problem with the way that the people and analysts and frankly NFL teams are judging him is that he started 5 games at the NFL level. For Richardson, even in the 2 years, we've at least seen a strong sample size that says, look, this guy is turning the football over. He's not making smart decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know how in a 5-game start sample size that you could say that Trey Lance is a bust in the National Football League. And I was never high on him. I don't think he should have gone as high as 3rd overall. So maybe that original kind of gut feeling is correct. But at the same time, who knows? Like, it's 5 NFL games. Like, obviously, it's been a few years now where NFL teams haven't liked what they've seen. But I think if he is on the field, which obviously the Chargers don't want to have, maybe he could make something happen and like reignite the flame that he had back in college. I do want to talk about last season, though.
Well, real quick,
Yeah,
I do agree with that. I mean, I do agree with the fact that we have not seen it's not like he's gone into a game and gone like this, like Anthony Richardson has, and pulled himself out because he was tired. So I do agree with that, and that's why I said I'm not taking anything away from him if he comes in. I'm just saying I think he has improved. I've seen a lot from him in camp, but again, I think people need to have patience with him. And I know patience is not a word that NFL fans want to use.
right.
I think if he can go this season and sit behind Herbert and learn this whole season, not have to go in at all, then I really think that Trey can make something of this. It's just going to take time and patience. I mean, he's sitting in a room with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. I know they have a huge bromance going on and everything, and obviously Jim loves Justin, but he's going to learn a lot in that quarterback room, and he's going to see what Justin's seeing. He's going to try and explain to him. And that's the thing. Justin is a leader. Well, he'll sit there and he'll explain things to guys. So I really think that he's going to benefit a lot. But again, if he can just take this season and sit behind him, then I really think, because again, Mike McCarthy, he's a good coach, but is he able to get the best out of players?
He's not the QB guru at all.
No. So, and I mean, I think I think we all remember what Jim did with Alex Smith, where they had a lockout and Jim is playing catch with him. And Alex Smith is in a contract year. Everybody was starting to call him a bust because he hadn't played well. And he's like, Alex, I'm going to do everything I can to bring you back. I believe in you. He believed in Alex, brought him back, and Alex had a great season and a half for him. And obviously, Colin Kaepernick took over, and that's all she wrote. But that reignited Alex Smith's career, and I feel like Jim could possibly do something for Trey and something to kind of help him out. So I definitely could see that happen. But again, I do agree that I don't like the way things are handled when it comes to some of these younger quarterbacks. I mean, some teams put them in a terrible position
Yep.
and expect the stars from they expect everything from them, and these guys still need to learn and they need to sit behind somebody, and that's why. At times, I think a lot of people believe that Kyle Shanahan is a little overrated just because, yeah, he produced Brock Purdy, but that's a 7th-round draft pick. What happened with Trey Lance, and why wasn't he able to get him going? And why did they think, hey, you know what? Our dog, well, I don't want to compare it to a dog, but like it's not behaving. Let's get rid of it. Let's send it somewhere else. And it can be somebody else's problem. That's not what you do. You wait there and you try and teach them and show them.
Right.
And I feel like Kyle kind of gave up too quickly on Trey.
You look at some of the best quarterbacks that are currently in the National Football League. Joe Burrow is a different story, and the Justin Herberts who just kind of had these gunslinger arms, no other action. I mean, Herbert wasn't even supposed to start week 1. He didn't, and then just played the rest of the season in his rookie year. But you look at some of the top quarterbacks, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, these guys didn't play right away. Again, Burrow's kind of the exception to that. So in the modern NFL, you look at what the Green Bay Packers have done. Rodgers sits behind Favre. Love sits behind Rodgers, and then you find success. It's a quarterback development, and some teams just can't figure it out. And who knows if Lance still has something that he could provide at the pro level. And I think you look at, he's obviously a mobile quarterback. You saw what Jim Harbaugh did with Colin Kaepernick, and then you look at Greg Roman at offensive coordinator. If you want to talk about coaches who could really help you shape the way a rushing quarterback should play in the National Football League, Trey Lance is in a perfect scenario to sit behind Justin Herbert.
Well, and look at Geno Smith's career. Geno was dubbed a bust, and he was a 2nd-round pick. He came over to the Chargers, learned from Anthony Lynn and Phillip Rivers for I think it was a year, then goes to Seattle, ends up starting, and boom, look at how you're able to learn when you're older. It's just, can you be that sensei, that Padawan learner, and take what the guys are giving you and learn from it? So no, I completely, and that's why I do not want I do want to see Arch Manning win a national championship, but I do not want it to be this year. I mean, if it is, it is, but he has a good family dynamic. But I feel like the pressure, people are going to start pressuring him. If he wins it this year, come on. You can do it. And I think I like the dynamic of what they're saying is play 24 games in college football, then you can go get that experience, get 2 seasons.
Right.
And I believe that the Mannings are 100%. I mean, Bill Parcells used to have specifics on what he wanted from his quarterbacks.
Right.
If not, he wouldn't touch them. So I know that's a Neanderthal way of thinking, but it's still the NFL. The game is still played the way it was back when Bill Parcells was coaching.
Sure.
I definitely agree with some of these things. But yeah, sorry for going on a quarterback tangent, but I completely agree with you when it comes to all that.
Chargers fans are listening to that. They're like, let's not have this conversation. Let's just worry about the Justin Herbert portion of this. And I mean, look, last season, in 23, it was not pretty. But last season, you have a clean slate. You get new pieces. No more Keenan Allen, no more Mike Williams, but you improve the offensive line. It just improved the rushing attack, whether that's from adding some different running backs, adding Greg Roman, whatever. Then Jim Harbaugh becomes the head coach. They proceed to make the playoffs, have a solid regular season, but then things just kind of fell apart from there. How come they started low, then peaked high, and then had a terrible finish to the season? How come they kind of had so much success under the new regime, all for it to just fall apart in the postseason?
Yeah. Well, if you look at their 3 worst games last season, they were all against opponents with very good defenses, and they figured out the scheme. What was the scheme? You stop J.K. Dobbins and you double team Ladd McConkey, and you can basically you can have your way with that offense. And that's not a knock on the Chargers. Jim and Joe Ortiz came in. They saw what the previous regime had left. They were in salary cap hell. They had a bunch of weird pieces and guys that really, I mean, Tom's last few drafts were all pretty bad, except for Rashawn Slater's the only thing that kind of saves, and Justin Herbert obviously are
Yeah.
the only draft picks that kind of save his last few drafts, but everything else was just pretty bad. So Jim and Joe come in and they kind of go low risk, high reward kind of guys. They give 1 or 2 year contracts, low money, but guys that they think can play well. Nobody thought Poona Ford was going to be what he was last year for them, and he ends up playing very well. Other guys step up. Deion Henley looks like an all-pro linebacker, and nobody had been talking about him before that. And so stuff like that is kind of what we saw from Jim. He coached up a lot of what was left over, and JK comes in, Gus Edwards comes in. JK was a home run hitter. He would be at 15 rushes for like 40 yards. And then all of a sudden he turned one up for 60 yards and boom, his stats would jump up. He was a home run hitting running back, which is what he was in Baltimore, but Gus Edwards didn't materialize in anything. So you take away that threat. And Ladd was the only receiver that was consistently playing football. The first 8 weeks of the season, it was Quentin Johnston. If we go back and look at his numbers, Quentin was the one that was scoring touchdowns. He was kind of moving the football. Will Dissly, also another player that was doing well. But at one point,
But talk about a final terrible draft pick for the previous regime. I mean, Johnson has not been what he can be.
Well, I mean, but last year I thought Johnson kind of took a positive step forward. He went from 400 yards, 800
8 touchdowns, not terrible. Yeah.
No, and that's it. And I feel like this year he's going to get lost a lot. Lost in the sense of like he's going to be able to, because everybody's focused on Keenan and Amarian Hampton and Ladd, he might get lost in that sauce and he might be able to set himself free. So teams really cracked down. Tampa Bay, Baltimore, and Houston all cracked down on the Chargers, and they were really able to set the tone physically. The Chargers weren't just able to match up with that. I think this year they're going to be able to match up better against those tough defenses, and I think they're going to be able to do a little bit more than they were last year, because this year you've gotten a little bit more of them. They had another draft class, so I definitely think that that they should be able to handle that a lot better this year.
And you can't just blame, a Justin Herbert when you have to look at the supporting pieces around him and you have to look at, how coaches are scheming. I want to bring up this conversation. Greg Roman's going into year 2 as offensive coordinator with the Chargers. It felt like they created the Ravens in the Chargers offense. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Greg Roman, general manager was in the Ravens regime. It felt like they were just stealing pieces from the Ravens playbook, if you will. But with the problem with Greg Roman in Baltimore for years was that his offense was very predictable. It wasn't Lamar Jackson's fault. Clearly, he knew how to throw the football well, but he didn't put that team in a good position to be a great passing team. So if you put guys in the box and double team the top weapon, as you were just saying, take down the top running back and the top wide receiver, and there's not much that the offense can do. Is this a Greg Roman problem, or will it be a recurring problem in Los Angeles?
I think if it's a recurring problem, like it kind of was last year, there is going to have to be a talk that Jim's going to have, because we kind of saw what happened in Baltimore towards the end. Guys spoke out and said that they didn't like the system that he was running, and everybody thought just because they had a running quarterback that they were going to be able to create magic with that offense, and it just didn't happen. And the problem is here, you have a gunslinger. So if this offense just doesn't get moving, especially because they have gotten better, they have better pieces, they have improved. This offense should be a lot better than it was last year. They got Najee Harris, who's on the field today. He's been practicing. Jim said there is a possibility he will play next Friday night against the Chiefs in Brazil. So that's a huge positive. Obviously, you look at Omarion Hampton. You've improved this team a lot since last year. You have rookies Trey Harris and KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith, who both of those guys just look like they could take this offense to the next level. So because originally I thought Jim was going to bring in a young OC and kind of like let the young OC handle the offense, like an offense that is modern to the NFL, not throwing it back to the early 2000s or late 2000s, but I definitely think that I think we're going back a little bit to smash mouth football if we're kind of looking at the way the NFL is kind of moving. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that Greg should be a lot better this year with these pieces. The only thing is it's all going to depend on that offensive line. So I do think that they're going to be a lot better. I think Greg is going to scheme up better. They have a lot of better they have better pieces. Even at tight end, you went from just Will Dissly to now you added Tyler Conklin, who's very underrated from the Jets. I thought he had a really good season last year for them. And then you bring Aronde Gadsden, who he's developed a relationship with Justin Herbert. And I know people saw him on the field, but they didn't see much production from him. That's because Justin wasn't on the field when it was Lance or Heineke or DJ. I think now you're going to see a little bit more from Aronde Gadsden and that relationship with Justin Herbert.
Let's talk about Herbert for a minute. I mean, they always, I'm stealing this from someone. I don't know who. I apologize, but they say like if you could build a quarterback in a lab, it's Justin Herbert. You just look at the physical gifts that he has, what he could do with the football, the talent. I mean, he's one of the most talented guys I think we've seen in a very, very long time. And talent can only get you so far. And he's had a lot of success. I mean, last year, what was it? 24 touchdowns, 3 picks, but then it was 4 in the Super Bowl. So should fans be confident that Herbert can be that guy who can lead the Chargers to the promised land?
I do think so. I think everybody knows what they have in Justin Herbert. I think the thing is that you look at it and it's more on, well, where has the coaching been? Like, I know a lot of people had problems with Anthony Lynn. A lot of people had issues with the way Brandon Staley kind of coached this team up and the lack of success. And now it's looked at as Jim Harbaugh is the savior that's going to come in and help Justin get over the top and help this team win a Super Bowl. And Jim said it today because he was asked about getting Justin Herbert his first playoff one. He's like, we're going for the Super Bowl. That's our goal. We're going to do it or die trying. That's how I feel about that. So Jim's been very vocal this offseason about, I mean, I don't know if you saw the clip from the Rich Eisen show. He said that one morning he woke up at 3 a.m. He looked up. He's like, I need to get Justin Herbert to Canton. Like, I need to help him make it to the Hall of Fame. So
Wow.
he's very vocal about what he wants to help his quarterback do. So I really think that with Jim Harbaugh, I really think that the Chargers are going to have their best chances in the next 2 seasons to try and win a Super Bowl. But again, it's going to take a lot because this team is still missing some pieces. But I really do think that that Jim is going to be the best chance they've ever had in their. They've never had a head coach like this. I mean, you can look at Marty Schottenheimer, but Marty always came up short in the postseason. And I mean, he had that great year in 2006, and they ended up the Marlon McCree fumble kind of screwed them over. But yeah, I definitely think that their best chance is going to be with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach.
I mean, inside NFL locker rooms, I mean, people, I don't want to say fear, but they respect Justin Herbert among the best in the league. I mean, I interviewed Ian Eagle earlier this week, one of the lead voices in the National Football League. And we were talking about Mahomes, and then I talked about the big 3 in the AFC, kind of outside of Mahomes and the Allen, the Jacksons, the Burrows. And he cut me off and he said, add Justin Herbert into that mix as well. Because in these conversations and inside the locker rooms and inside the facilities, Justin Herbert is recognized as such a talent. And I think that people need to start to realize that. And I think that if obviously the playoff success hasn't been there, but if he can find some continuity at the head coaching spot, if you can find some consistency in his offensive core, who knows what he can achieve? He's only played 2 postseason games. Can you use that to judge how a guy can win? And I'm looking forward to seeing if he can maybe overcome some of those hurdles. I want to talk about the rushing attack that could also be vital for this football team. You add Najee Harris, he's healthy, at least it seems again. And then Omarion Hampton was unbelievable in college. The 1-2 kind of punch at running back. What do you think about the Chargers rushing attack this year?
Real quick, going back to that whole Justin Herbert thing, another thing that I think fans are really kind of holding on to is that Peyton Manning didn't win his first playoff game until year 6. This is year 6 for Justin Herbert. And I think what Ian told you is completely right. I mean, I think people like to write him off, but he's had the most turnover out of anybody. I mean, John Harbaugh's been with Lamar. Andy Reid has been with Patrick Mahomes. Zach Taylor's been with Joe Burrow. I mean, even Sean McDermott. I always confuse him with Doug. Sean McDermott has been with Josh Allen his whole time. Justin's the only one that's had 3 coaches in his first 5 seasons. So it has been a little bit different for him than everybody else. So I do completely understand it, but that's what I think of that. I really do think that Justin is one of the top 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks in the NFL. It depends on your list, but I definitely think he is a unique talent. I remember watching Phillip. Phillip didn't have an arm like this guy. Like he did not have what this guy possesses, the athleticism and everything. He's like the opposite of Phillip Rivers in a sense. So,
Right.
I definitely think that Justin is gonna. I think he'll win his first playoff game pretty soon, but I really think that in the next few years he's gonna start jumping ahead and getting into those conversations because he kind of. I mean, in a sense, you kind of need to. I mean, Jalen's already won one. That 2000 class is always going to be together, and you kind of need to set yourself apart from all those other guys. But going back to the running back, you said how do I feel like they're going to work?
Yeah, just the 1-2 punch. How you
Yeah,
feeling about the rushing attack? The running back room seems better than it was last year.
it's I think it's completely revamped. I think you got again, I know that people have a lot of question marks about Najee and the eye and everything, but I think the fact that he has been able to now he's practicing, it looks like he is going to play week one. They're saying that he's on pace to. I think that'd be huge. Nobody really knows what the Chargers have in Najee because he hasn't played with them. I think Najee's a guy that's a thumper. He tires out. This is a thing too. Jim came in last year, and his message went to Rashawn Slater and Joe Wall. That message went to Will Dissly. Like he said, we want to tire out with our offense the opposing defense. We want to tire them out. So in the fourth quarter, they're gassed. They don't want to play us. If you notice, go back and look. J.K. Dobbins' big runs happen in the fourth quarter when guys were exhausted, teams were exhausted. Now add Najee Harris and an Omarion Hampton. I think Omarion's going to be very good this year, and I think Omarion's going to be the guy that can pull out those long runs. If you go back and look at his tape at North Carolina, and I remember I asked Joe Ortiz about this, and he said, Fernando, I sat there and I watched him. And I watched him with Drake May as his quarterback, and the production did not fall when Drake May left. If anything, the production got even better.
Right.
Omarion is kind of that home run hitting running back. He's going to hurt you because he's going to run the football. He's tough. He doesn't go down easy. But he's very fast. And then you look at Najee. Najee's not incredibly fast, but he's big. He's thick. It's hard to bring him down. So I really do think that they're going to have their 1-2 punch this year. And if both guys can stay healthy, I really do see a good combination between these guys that are really going to do exactly what Jim has been, because Jim didn't even have this in San Francisco. He had
Right.
Frank Gore, but he didn't have that second running back to kind of help them.
And he certainly didn't have Justin Herbert to take attention off the rushing game either.
And that's where we go too. So I think this year play action is going to be very heavy. Last year, I think towards the end, teams weren't biting on the play action because they're like, well, J.K. Dobbins is out for 4 games, so what do we have to worry about in the backfield? Now you have something to worry about in the backfield. Oh, and there's plays. If you go back and look at Omarion's film where the quarterback's kind of scrambling and he tosses him a pitch and he's able to take it 70 yards. Right. The stuff like that, I really think this team is going to be. I think this team is going to look completely different from the way it did last year. But again, it's all on the offensive line. If this offensive line can't block for the quarterback or the running backs, it's all going to fall apart. And that's why I feel like a lot of us media members were a little scratching our heads a little bit that they brought back Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson and didn't do more to try and find guys to compete against those guys, because it seemed like from the beginning, Jim said, yeah, this is our guard and this is our center. He tried to interchange them and it didn't work. So now he changed them back. And yeah, that's kind of the biggest head scratcher for me. But Jim is loyal to a fault. We all know that. And we've seen it in his run we've seen it in Stanford. We've seen it with the 49ers, and we saw it in Michigan. And now we're seeing it in LA.
For sure. I mean, Hampton was great, led the ACC in rushing yards in back-to-back years. He certainly did get better in his junior campaign. It was a marvelous season. Boy. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Real quick before we break down the schedule and then wrap things up, I want to talk about the defense because there is another side to the ball. Well, it's not maybe as entertaining to talk about. We do got to talk about the defense. I think in some areas it looks great. In some areas there have some work to do. So how are you feeling as a whole about the defense heading into next year?
I think their defensive line is the most underrated defensive line in the NFL. And I know people are going to look at the names. I don't know who Tito Ogbanya is, or I don't know who Naquan Jones is. These guys, I think what Jesse Minter was going for was to have a rotation of defensive linemen. And that's kind of what they have now. They you can heavily rotate with all 6 guys that they have. I feel like they're going to be a lot better than what people think. I think they're gonna Naquan Jones, Deshaun Hand, Tito Banya is one of those guys that was selected by Tom Telesco 2 years ago, 3, and I thought the last 2 years I was kind of like, I mean, and then this year I watched him during camp and I saw him manhandling people, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, maybe Tito's made that jump, and they're really excited about the whole defensive line. So I really think the defensive line is going to be a lot better. I think that's going to help when it comes to running the football. Going to edge rusher, that's my biggest concern. I
Sure.
believe. I think Khalil, obviously he's 33, 34 years old. I think they're putting too much pressure on Tuli Tuipulotu, the 3rd-year outside linebacker or edge rusher out of USC. I think they are going to need him to make that huge jump that you kind of want to see from a player in his 3rd year. He's learned from Joey Bosa. He's learned from Khalil. This is going to be the year where they're going to have him put it together because they're going to need another edge rusher on the other side. Bud Dupree's a guy that's he's a veteran in this league. They brought him back. He's going to be in there in the mix. Last year, he had about 5 or 6 sacks. He kind of left 3 or 4 on the field that I can remember. But I really think that this year is going to be a better. He told me the other day he feels really good. He feels a lot better than he did last year. He feels comfortable. They have Caleb Murphy and Kyle Kennard, who they drafted. Murphy made a lot more noise in the preseason than Kyle Kennard did. So I think Murphy's the outside linebacker. For linebackers, I think they're really good with Deion Henley. I think Deion showed that last year that he was very good. I think he's going to be even better this year. He says he feels a lot more comfortable in this system. It's a 2nd year in it. And last year he was dealing with he had a brace on because of a labrum, and he says he's out of it. He feels good. He feels ready to go. So I think we're going to see a lot out of Denzel Perryman's the other linebacker. They feel good about him. Secondary is kind of the other part where I'm sure that's your other question.
Yeah.
They're very young, and they have Tarheeb still. They have Cam Hart, and I think Donta Jackson are going to be the 3 corners that they're going to basically throw out there when Derwin's not in nickel.
And Derwin is kind of the security blanket in there.
Exactly. So Derwin takes away your best, your slot guy or whoever you need him to go up against. So, but I definitely think that their cornerback situation is a little underrated. I think Cam and Tarheeb was very good last year, and I thought he should have gotten more defensive player of the year, rookie defensive player of the year consideration. He didn't, but I thought he had a very good year. I think he's going to grow even more. Cam is big and physical. He had 2 concussions last year. So that's where he's going to need to kind of tone it down a little bit so that he doesn't miss any time this year. Dante has had multiple interceptions during practice, so he's looked pretty good. Benjamin St. Just is kind of here and there.
Sure.
Nico Reed was very good during practice. I don't know if they're going to use Nico at all, but during practices and even during games, he looked very good. He looked aggressive, and he made the 53-man roster even without an invite to the combine. So he's good. When we look at the safety last position, obviously Derwin James, one of the best safeties out there. I think even people have kind of forgotten about how good Derwin James is. The physicality, he's able to take away your tight end. Those battles with Travis Kelce are legendary. So we got to see that week 1. Elijah Molden, very underrated. They traded for him the week before. This week, actually, week 0, they traded for Elijah. He's been a very good piece to their secondary. They have Alohi Gilman and another guy that everybody's very excited about, RJ Minkins, their 6th-round pick, 6th-round pick out of Clemson. A lot of people are very excited about him and what he could bring to this secondary. So yeah, that's basically. I think their defense is better than it was last year. I just think there's a lot less names, and I feel like they're really going to have a lot of guys step up for this defense to be as good as it was last year.
Let's take a quick look at the schedule. You mentioned that opening game against Kansas City. That one's in Brazil. This is kind of my projection for what I think they'll do this season. And I know Chargers fans may not exactly be happy with a 2-game regression. But look, the AFC West has gotten a lot better. The schedule is somewhat difficult. It's the 12th hardest in the NFL according to win percentage, but you got some improved teams this year. The Raiders are improved. I think overall it's going to be tough to stay very consistent. I have 4 straight wins from that week 9 to week 13 patch. 3 of those games come against teams who didn't make the playoffs last year. So they're going to have to capitalize against the poor teams and hope he can split with the good. I just think after the week 12 bye, you play 6 teams with realistic playoff aspirations, and that could hold them back. Overall, what stands out to you from the schedule? My projections sound right about 9-8, or do you think they'll do better?
I actually had them at 11 and the same as last year. Jim Harbaugh's teams usually take a step forward in that second year, and I understand where you're coming. I mean, this is 2 games. This is what Vegas kind of has them at. So I don't disagree with this. I mean, I have them in the 11-9 range. But usually Jim Harbaugh's teams take a fat jump in that second year. That's kind of what I'm going off of. I think by week 16, to be honest, I think Dallas will be in. I think Dallas is going to be really bad this year. I watched them in their joint practice with the Rams. They looked horrendous defensively, even with Micah, without Micah. I don't think they're going to be very good. But I mean, I don't disagree with any of this. I think Minnesota is going to be very aggressive. I think it's that Minnesota game. It's going to have to be Jim is going to have to look at Jesse and be like, we have to destroy what we created, in a sense. Like they're going to have to look at JJ McCarthy and be like, I don't know if you're a wrestling guy, but when Shawn Michaels looks at Ric Flair and he's like, I'm sorry, I love you, and super kicks him and ends his career. I think that's exactly what we're going to see that week 8. But that Miami one is interesting. Loss in Miami. I mean, I guess it is hot. It's going to be a kind of a weird week. I do kind of, that's an interesting one. But yeah, no, I mean, I would never look at anybody else's projections. I think projections are kind of what keeps this going. People love projections. People love lists. People love top 10s. They love all that stuff. Yeah, but I mean, and look, that week, the week 6 against Miami, all the way till that Raiders game, week 13, that's a stretch where the Chargers are going to have to do their most damage. If they can go on a win streak on that, if they win all those games,
I mean, I find it very hard in that stretch. Yeah.
Yeah. I find it very hard for them not to make it to the playoffs if they go on a huge winning streak around that time. But yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is. Again, I had them at 11, but that was before the Rashawn Slater injury. But I still think that offense, for some reason, is going to be. I think their offense is going to be better than what people think. But Houston's very good. Denver is kind of that team that everybody's kind of picking to go to the Super Bowl, and I just think Bo Nix is going to regress a little bit. Philly, I think Philly's still going to be Philly.
I think they split with the AFC West, and to me that's fine. In the tough division, you go 3-3, you're fine.
Yeah, no. I completely agree with you. I just I'm really interested to see what this season's going to be. I can't believe we're already here. Yeah. I mean, Chargers started training camp freaking 10 days before anybody else did, so I've kind of been in the hot sun a lot. But no, that's a formidable projection. I think that's pretty good. So no playoffs, I'm guessing.
I have them barely sneaking in as a 7th seed. I think 9 wins actually does get him in. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting schedule. There is something else I want to point out, and maybe you could touch on this, and then we'll wrap up. I mean, obviously the AFC West is so competitive. There's so many teams kind of in that wild card mix, and I think will the Chargers be good enough? Obviously, that's just their record will determine that. I do want to talk about though their success or lack thereof on primetime games. They haven't gone above 500 in primetime games in the season since 2018. They went 2-3 last year, 2-4 the year before. I'm not saying that this team can't play in the spotlight, but then you look at 2 postseason losses as standalone games. This year they play 5 primetime standalone games. 4 of those teams made the playoffs last year. 2 of them were in the Super Bowl. The other one won 14 games. The other one is coached by Mike Tomlin. And the Raiders are very much improved with Geno Smith and Pete Carroll now moving from Seattle to Las Vegas. So I think there's a possibility that they lose a lot of those primetime games, and that could hurt them.
Yeah, I would agree with that, except for, man, I hate putting so much faith into Jim Harbaugh that he's just going to come in with a magic wand and change everything. But I really feel like I've noticed a little something different with the team this year when it comes to mentality and everything. But you're right, because that Week 17 game, that could easily get flipped, and it becomes a primetime game against Houston. If for some reason Kansas City is falling off and they don't have anything, and it's Chargers and Broncos week 18 for the division, that becomes a primetime game.
Or
So
for a
no,
wild card possibility.
oh, that's another one too. Yeah, the wild. It's funny. It's just that when we get that last game, it usually isn't for a wild card spot. It's always for the division. So
Right.
that's why I didn't even think about that. But no, I agree with you, and I feel like this year they should be able to perform a little bit better on that. I do agree that they kind of have had misgivings. Last year, they almost gave away the Cincinnati Bengals and the Denver Broncos. Both of those primetime games because of late touchdowns, comebacks from. Well, no, the comebacks were from the Bengals. When it came to the Denver Broncos game, the Chargers ended up. They were the ones that came back and beat Denver. But yeah, no, I agree. They do need to do better on primetime. Again, like you said, there is a lot of games that this year. I mean, you have them losing against Kansas City in primetime against the Vikings, so that's 2
The
losses
Raiders,
against the Raiders. That's 3. That's 4 losses because it's the
Eagles.
Eagles, and then the only win is the one against the Steelers. Yeah, no, they if they flip that and go 4-1, then it's a completely different story. But again,
Sure, right.
that's going to be very tough. I mean, all the teams that they play on prime time
Okay.
are very, very, very tough opponents. By the way,
Well,
you know what?
all of them have realistic postseason aspirations.
Exactly. Well, except for the Raiders, but sure.
You don't think they have realistic postseason aspirations? Geno Smith, Pete Carroll? No?
I just we just had on my show, we just had Adam Hill from the Las Vegas Review Journal. Adam was like, that defense is so bad, and we're like, really? He's like, dude, you just have Max Crosby. He's like, if Christian Wilkins was in there, like they'd be a lot better. He's like, this defense is gonna be horrendous. He's like, I think what they're gonna count on is almost outscoring their opponents. And I'm like, that defense is that bad? He's like, dude, they do not look good. So that's the only reason why I don't have playoff aspirations for the Raiders. And again, like I was telling Adam, I mean, Pete Carroll to me, I mean, he's 70 something years old. How long is he going to hang in there? I know he looks
Right.
young when he's out there. Is Chip Kelly a successor? So I think what Pete is doing is building a team for somebody else, being completely honest. But I still think that this is the toughest division in football. You have 4 of the best head coaches to ever grace the game. So it's going to be a
Yes.
slugfest this whole year. By the way, that week 2 game, you know why it's not in LA? It was supposed to be in LA. You know why it's not? Chris Brown comes to LA the whole weekend. So that's the reason. You may be too young to even know who Chris
Wow.
Brown is, but he's having a whole concert that weekend. So that's why they have to wait almost, how many days is that? They have to wait about 11 days since playing to face the Raiders. So that's a little bit of an extra break for them. But
Sure, but then
yeah.
you don't play at home until week 3, and that's tough. And that's why I have them winning
Yeah.
that first game at home, and I don't have them losing a game at home until the
Until
Eagles
the
game. So,
Vikings. No, the Vikings.
oh, yes, the Vikings game. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think they'll be a decent home team. I think when East Coast teams got to travel to West, that's obviously very tough. Well, we'll see what happens. I think the Chargers, obviously, they have realistic postseason aspirations. They could very well get in. Real quick for you, right before we wrap up, Fernando Ramirez, this has been great. One last projection. What are the Chargers doing this year? What's the record? What's the result in the postseason? What's the conversation this time next year?
Oh, geez. I'll see. Look, I'm a WWE guy, so I love storylines. I love all that stuff. I love all that. So give me 10-7. They go into the playoffs and they knock off either Baltimore, Buffalo, or Kansas City. They slay one of those dragons and then they lose in the divisional round. But I think as a wild card team going into one of those teams and with those 2 running backs that they have, I could totally see them knocking off a team. So why not just say they make it to the divisional this year and the team looks a lot tougher than what people expect, but obviously they do miss Rashawn Slater at in some aspects, but I'll say 10-7 and Justin Herbert gets his first playoff win.
We'll see what happens. It will
I'm
sure
being
be.
generous, I guess.
I mean, we'll see what happens. It will sure be very exciting. They have a talented team and one of the best coaches the game has to offer. So, a lot of anticipation. This has been a great 44-minute episode. Fernando Ramirez, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate
Uh,
it.
of course, anytime.
We're going to wrap this one up here. A lot to talk about with LA Chargers football. The links to Fernando's work is in the description below, alongside Fernando Ramirez of the Sporting Tribune. I'm your host, Chase Coburn. Stay tuned for more 32 on 32 episodes as we preview every team's season with the NFL season just upon us. I'm your host, Chase Coburn.